This ebook is offered freely. If you wish, you may donate and help us continue offering our services. May you be happy. To make a donation, please visit PARIYATTI 867 Larman Road on Alaska, Washington 98570 USA 360.978.4998. Pariyati is a non-profit organization dedicated to enriching the world by B. Disseminating the words of the Buddha, B. Providing sustenance for the Seeker's journey, B. Illuminating the meditator's path. Meditation Now. Inner Peace Through Inner Wisdom. By S.N. Goyanka. A collection commemorating Mr. Goyanka's tour of North America, April-August 2002. Vipassana Research Publications on Alaska, Washington. Vipassana Research Publications. An imprint of Pariyati Publishing, 867 Larman Road on Alaska, 198570. N. Copyright 2002 Vipassana Research Institute. Second printing 2003. Third printing 2009. PDF ebook 2012. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be used or reproduced in any manner whatsoever without the written permission of the Vipassana Research Institute, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical articles and reviews. ISBN 9781928706236 softcover print, ISBN 9781938754421 OPDF ebook. The publishers are grateful to the following for their help with this collection. The publishers and editors of the Vipawayan ± Patrick ± and of the Vipassana Research Institute for their translations and generous assistance in gathering the materials. Alan Atkinson for his kind permission to print his interview with Mr. Goyanka. Contents. S.N. Goyanka, a teacher for the world. 4 Vipassana meditation and the laws of nature. 9. An interview with S.N. Goyanka by Alan Atkinson. Essays by S.N. Goyanka. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. 34 The Universal Message of Peace. 36. Address to the Millennium World Peace Summit, August 2000. The Meaning of Happiness. 40 Religion. 45 Anger. 48 The Art of Living. 52 How to Defend the Republic. 60 Awareness of Natural Respiration. 68 Walk the Path Yourself. 73 The Importance of Daily Meditation. 82 Awaken in Wisdom. 88 The Essence of Wisdom. 90 Work Out Your Own Salvation. 95 Freedom from Addiction. 103 The Merits of D plus or minus Na. 115 Vipassana Centers. 117. S.N. Goyanka. A teacher for the world. Mr. Satyanarayan Goyanka, the foremost lay teacher of Vipassana meditation, was a student of the late Sayagyi U Ba Khin of Burma, Myanmar. The technique which Mr. Goyanka teaches represents a tradition that is traced back to the Buddha. The Buddha never taught a sectarian religion, he taught Dhamma, the way to liberation, which is universal. In the same way, Mr. Goyanka's approach is totally non-sectarian. For this reason his teaching has a profound appeal to people of all backgrounds, of every religion and no religion, from every part of the world. From businessman to spiritual teacher. Mr. Goyanka was born in Mandalay, Myanmar, in 1924. He joined his family business in 1940 and rapidly became a pioneering industrialist, establishing several manufacturing corporations. He soon became a leading figure in Myanmar's large influential Indian community, and for many years headed such organizations as the Burma Marwari Chamber of Commerce and the Rangoon Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He often accompanied Union of Burma trade delegations on international tours as an advisor. In 1956 Mr. Goyanka took his first 10-day Vipassana course at the International Meditation Center in Rangoon, under the guidance of Sayagyi U Ba Khin. In 1964-1966 Mr. Goyanka's businesses and industries were taken over when the newly installed military government of Myanmar 4. Nationalized all industry in the country. This gave him an opportunity to spend more time with his teacher for meditation and in-depth training, all the while remaining a devoted family man and father of 6 sons. After 14 years practicing with his teacher, he was appointed a teacher of Vipassana himself and devoted his life to spreading the technique for the benefit of all humanity. Shortly thereafter he came to India and conducted his first 10-day meditation course in 1969. In India, a country still sharply divided by caste and religion, Vipassana has been widely and easily accepted because of its non-sectarian nature. The Vipassana International Academy, Dhamma Giri, was established in 1974 in Agatpuri, near Mumbai, India. Courses of 10 days duration and longer are held there continuously. In 1979, Mr. Goyanka began traveling abroad to introduce Vipassana in other countries of the world. He has personally taught tens of thousands of people in more than 400 10-day courses in Asia, North America, Europe and Australasia. In response to an ever-growing demand, he started training assistant teachers to conduct these 10-day residential courses on his behalf. To date, he has trained more than 700 assistant teachers who have, with the help of thousands of volunteers, held Vipassana courses in more than 90 countries, including the People's Republic of China, Iran, Muscat, the United Arab Emirates, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mongolia, Russia, Serbia, Taiwan, Cambodia, Mexico and all the countries of South America. More than 100 centers devoted to the teaching of Vipassana have been established in 21 countries. Today more than 1,000 courses are held annually around the world. One of the unique aspects of these Vipassana courses is that they are offered free of any charge for board, lodging or tuition. The expenses are completely met by voluntary donations. Neither Mr. Goyanka nor his assistants receive any financial gain from these courses. A prolific writer and poet, Mr. Goyanka composes in English, Hindi and Rajasthani, and his works have been translated into many languages. He has been invited to lecture by institutes as diverse as the Dharma Drum Mountain Monastery of Shengyan, in Taiwan, the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and the Millennium World Peace Summit at the United Nations, where he stressed for the assembled spiritual leaders the overreaching importance of inner peace to effect real world peace. Teaching for all sections of society, from prisoners to government officials. Vipassana meditation has been taught to prison inmates and staff in many parts of India as well as the United States, Britain, New Zealand, Taiwan and Nepal. There are permanent Vipassana centers in 2 Indian prisons. More than 10,000 inmates have attended 10-day Vipassana courses in jails and prisons. 1,000 prisoners participated in a groundbreaking 10-day course conducted by Mr. Goyanka in Tihar Jail, Delhi, in April 1994. What started in a dramatic way in Tihar has now spread all over India. Convinced of its positive effects, the government of India has recommended that every prison in the country should organize 10-day Vipassana courses for inmates. As a result, hundreds of prisoners continue to participate in Vipassana retreats every month. In addition, thousands of police officers have also attended Vipassana courses at the Meditation Center at the Police Academy, Delhi, and at other centers in India. Men and women from all walks of life successfully practice Vipassana. They include the highly educated and the illiterate, the wealthy and the impoverished, aristocrats and slum dwellers, devout followers of every religion and followers of none, the powerful and the powerless, the elderly and the young. Courses have been organized for people with disabilities, including the blind and leprosy patients. Other programs have focused on school children, drug addicts, homeless children, college students and business executives. High-level institutions in India, such as the governments of the states of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, large corporations such as the Oil and Natural Gas Commission, leading research institutes such as the Bhabha Atomic Research Institute, and national training institutes such as the Indian Institute of Taxation, all encourage their employees to attend Vipassana courses as part of their ongoing job training. Commitment to peace. Mr. Goyanka believes and teaches that for peace outside, among nations, among different communities, there must be peace inside. Individuals must learn the art of living, in order to live peaceful lives. This is the heart of his teaching to people from different backgrounds. One important consequence of his work in India has been a subtle but telling influence on interreligious harmony. Thousands of Catholic priests, Buddhist monks, Jain ascetics, Hindu sannyasis and other religious leaders have come, and continue to come, to Vipassana courses. The universality of Vipassana, the core of the Buddha's teaching, is providing a way whereby ideological differences can be bridged and people of diverse backgrounds can experience deep benefits without fearing conversion. Mr. Goyanka recently made history in India when he and a leading Hindu leader, H. Shankaracharya of Kanchi, met and together exhorted Hindus and Buddhists alike to forget past differences and live in harmony. After this initial meeting, Mr. Goyanka also met H. Shankaracharya of Sringeri and many other top Hindu leaders in an effort to establish harmonious relations between Hindu and Buddhist communities. Despite this positive development, mere exhortations alone cannot bring about the much desired reconciliation and cooperative spirit. Only when individuals undertake to remove from within themselves the blocks to peace and harmony can peace begin to flower outside and affect society. For this reason, Mr. Goyanka has always emphasized that the practical application of meditation is what will enable human beings to achieve inner as well as outer peace. Vipassana Meditation and the Laws of Nature. An interview with S.N. Goyanka by Alan Atkinson. Introduction: I can't tell you anything about what Vipassana meditation feels like because I've never done it. But while definitions are tricky, what we call spirituality, the reaching of human awareness and conduct toward that truth which passeth all understanding, seems basic to meeting the enormous challenges of our times. Which is why I accepted an invitation to interview S.N. Goyanka during his 1992 visit to the Seattle area, where I was living at the time. Goyanka, a leading teacher of the ancient Vipassana meditation technique, is not spiritual leader in the sense one usually means by the term, for he has no followers. He would likely prefer to be described as a scientist who researches the relationship of mind, body, and matter via insight meditation, and teaches others how to do the same, directly, for themselves. A former wealthy industrialist born in Burma to parents of Indian descent, Goyanka turned to Vipassana, which means insight, as in seeing into reality as it is when nothing else could alleviate his severe migraine headaches. He was introduced to the practice, reputed to be the method of meditation originally taught by the Buddha, though Vipassana itself is not a sectarian movement, by senior Burmese government official and meditation master, Sayagyi U Ba-Kin. Goyanka became a devoted practitioner of Vipassana, and in 1969, having given up his businesses in Burma, he moved to India to begin teaching the technique in the land where it originated. 2 decades later, there are Vipassana meditation centers throughout the world, and they attract people from all faiths. Many things seem to distinguish Vipassana, as taught by Goyanka, from other meditation techniques, including its insistence on receiving an initial 10-day training directly from a qualified teacher. 9. But more importantly, in an era when too many priests and gurus have been accused of sexual or financial misconduct, the Goyanka-led Vipassana network seems beyond reproach. As Goyanka explains below, no one is allowed to pay for training in Vipassana, and no teacher is permitted to earn money from teaching. The expenses of those who take the training courses are covered by donations of time and money from students who came before them and want to help spread the benefit of the practice. The following is condensed from a lengthy interview conducted at the Northwest Vipassana Center in Onalaska, Washington, in the summer of 1991. Alan Atkinson. Question: Many people today are embracing the idea that truths are multiple, that there are many different kinds of truth, that truth is something created by humans, and that there is no one ultimate truth. Yet Vipassana, as I understand it, seems to point toward an understanding of truth as something absolute. From the perspective of Vipassana, what is truth? Goyanka ji, you are quite correct when you say that generally, human beings have created truth. Different people have different views. Human beings are intellectual beings, and at the level of intellect, reasoning, logic, someone will say, perhaps this is so. It appears to be so. This seems logical. Someone else will say, no, this is not logical, that is logical. All those perceptions are at the intellectual level, and the intellect has its own limitation, it differs from person to person. But there are basic laws of the nature, for example, fire burns. What does this have to do with intellect? It is simply the truth. If you put your hand in the fire, it burns. If it does not burn, it is not fire, though it may be something else. This is the law of nature, which can be experienced by one and all. It is not somebody's intellectual game, it is truth. Vipassana meditation works with the actual truth, which can be experienced by one and all. Vipassana is not an intellectual game. It is also not an emotional or devotional game. This is another kind of truth that human beings create. I have great devotion in Buddha, so whatever Buddha says is the truth. I have great devotion for Jesus Christ, and I will say, whatever Jesus Christ said is truth. These are devotional games, and they also vary from person to person. So truths which are based on devotion, or truths which are based on intellect, will always differ. They cannot be the same. But truth based on actual experience will remain the same. Vipassana gives importance to the actual experience. The truth experienced by each individual is the truth for that person. Now there are levels of experience. One may not be able to experience a particular truth now. But as one goes deeper inside, experimenting, and starts experiencing subtler things, then everyone will experience the same subtle reality at the deeper level. It is not that only a particular gifted person will experience it. The law of nature is the same law for everybody. Anybody who puts a hand in fire gets burned. Fire won't discriminate for a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew. The defilements of the mind act the same way. If you generate anger, hatred, ill will, animosity, passion, fear, ego, worry, anxiety, any impurity in the mind, it will make you miserable. It will make everyone miserable. The result is the same for an Indian or a Russian, a European or an American. The law of the nature does not discriminate, does not favor. This is truth, truth eternal, for everybody, all the time, past, present and future. Similarly, if the mind is free from these defilements, if one does not generate anger and the mind is free from negativity, if the mind is pure, one will notice that the mind becomes full of love, full of compassion and goodwill. These good qualities arise naturally in a pure mind. And when these wholesome qualities are in the mind, one naturally feels very peaceful, very harmonious. Again, this is a law of nature. Whether you are a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian, makes no difference. White or black or yellow, makes no difference. Purity of the mind makes us feel very happy, peaceful and harmonious. We may belong to any community, any religion, any sect or none at all. Vipassana is beyond all religions, beyond all sects, beyond all beliefs, beyond all dogmas or cults. It is a pure science of mind and matter, of how they interact, how they keep on influencing and being influenced by each other. This reality is not to be accepted at the intellectual level, not to be accepted at the devotional level. It has to be experienced by each individual. Suppose I have never experienced the burning of fire. I may have understood it intellectually because others have said, if you put your hand in fire, it will burn. But once I have actually put my hand on a fire, and I find that it burns, naturally I will keep my hand away from fire afterwards. In the same way, if we understand intellectually that all these negativities make us unhappy, this is an intellectual understanding. But when you go deep inside, you can experience this truth for yourself. Look, anger has arisen, and I have become so agitated. Passion has arisen, I have become so agitated. When any impurity arises, I become so agitated, so irritated, so miserable. You are experiencing it. And when you experience it directly, the next time you will be more careful not to generate such negativity. Look, this is like fire. If I generate anger, it burns. This is not a sermon, there is no devotion involved, it is a fact, a hard fact of the life. If you defile your mind, nature, the law of nature, starts punishing you then and there. It won't wait until after death and take you to hell. You suffer the pangs of hell now. You become so miserable. Similarly, if you keep your mind pure, full of love, compassion and goodwill, it starts giving the reward here and now. Look, your mind is pure, no negativity, you feel so peaceful, so happy. So simple. That's all Vipassana is, just following the law of nature. And by practicing, experiencing, one starts changing the behavior pattern of the mind. To come out of misery and live a happy life, everyone wants this, but one doesn't know how to do it. By the practice of Vipassana you go to the depth of your mind, where the actual misery starts because of these negativities, where the actual happiness is experienced because of the absence of these negativities, and once you start experiencing these things for yourself, a change automatically happens in your mind. You live a better life. Everyone lives better life. Question, is Vipassana a religion? Goyanka G, no. There is no cult or sect or religion involved in Vipassana. For example, people used to be under the impression that the world was flat. And Galileo said, no, it is round and it rotates on its own axis. This was so even before Galileo, it was so at the time of Galileo, it was so afterwards. People simply started accepting it. Yes, it's true, it's round, it's rotating. They didn't get converted to Galileoism, they didn't become Galileoists. Similarly, there is a law of gravity in nature. Newton discovered it. That doesn't mean he created a law, the law was always there. The law of relativity was there too, Einstein discovered it. In the same way in Vipassana, there is no conversion to any religion or any sectarianism involved. An enlightened person discovers this law, that when we generate negativity nature punishes us. Everyone wants to be free of this misery, and look, nature has also given us a way. We can observe it. We can observe the mind and matter reactions going on inside, and we will find we are coming out of it. This is the truth which was always there. This universal truth can be experienced by one and all can benefit from it. A Christian will continue to remain a Christian his whole life, a Hindu, a Muslim, Jew a Jew. But they will start living a better life. This is all Vipassana wants. This is what attracted me to Vipassana. I came from a totally different tradition, but when I passed through one Vipassana course I found it is so scientific, so rational, so non-sectarian, universal, and so result-oriented. It gives results here and now. What more could anybody want? Nobody told me to become a Buddhist. My teacher said, if you are a Hindu you remain a Hindu. I don't care. Doing Vipassana is like doing physical exercises to keep your body healthy. Here is a mental exercise to keep the mind healthy, which is much more important. The body may be very healthy, and yet if your mind is not healthy, you can't keep your body healthy. It will become unhealthy. So to me this mental exercise is so scientific, so non-sectarian, so rational, so universal, that everyone should take advantage of it. It is not a foreign cult which is being imposed on a particular community, nothing like that. People are afraid, I understand, because many gurus have come from India and tried to exploit the people in different ways, financially and socially. People are afraid when they see, oh, another meditation teacher has come. Well, he may talk very fine, but ultimately he will try to exploit us and make us his slaves or this or that, or we may lose our own religion and get converted. That fear is natural, I can understand. Question: how is the Vipassana organization set up to prevent the kinds of abuse, especially financial and sexual, that have plagued so many other spiritual organizations? Goyanka: financial abuse is impossible in this tradition, because anybody who teaches must have some other means of livelihood. This teaching can never become a profession or a means of livelihood for the teacher, or the assistants, or those who serve on courses. Anybody who gives any kind of assistance in this organization must have his or her own means of livelihood, so that nobody expects anything. And even if something is offered, they are not supposed to take it. They are giving this service because they have gotten so much from it, as in my case. I got so much from this technique. I was a very rich, very angry person, and very unhappy. I had a lot of problems in my life. And this technique took me out of those problems as if I had a totally new birth. So because I feel so happy with this technique, I feel like sharing with others, because I know people are miserable in the same ways I was. Rich or poor, everyone is living an egoistic, self-centered life, generating negativities, becoming miserable. If this technique is given to these people, they will become happy. So one feels like sharing it. In the same way, there are those who have learned from me, thousands of them around the world, who feel like sharing. Some cannot serve, cannot give time, so they donate money. That donation is not like a fee for what they receive. What they got for free. They donate so that others can learn this technique. You see, this technique is such that it can only be given in a residential course. People have to come and stay for 10 days. So there are boarding, lodging, and other expenses. But we do not charge people for those expenses. There is not a trace of commercialism involved. So where does the money come from? It comes from old students, who may feel that, I can't personally go and serve people directly. But I am comfortable in many ways, so I will give $5, or $10, or $5,000, according to my capacity. And this is how it works. Now, there are other ways of exploiting people. One is socially. Those who start teaching may try to keep people under their clutches, like slaves. My guru says I must murder that fellow, or whatever you have in your house, bring it and donate it here. All such things are possible, if people become slaves. The Vipassana tradition is totally against that. Each individual is one's own master. There is no gurudom involved. You experience the practice yourself. If you find it is good for you, then accept it. Don't accept the word of a guru unless you have experienced the teaching and found it helpful to you and helpful to others. A guru may say, you are a very ordinary person, I am such a wise, enlightened person, so whatever I say, you must accept. That is totally prohibited in Vipassana. Each individual has to enlighten oneself, and then only should one accept the truth, not because the teacher says so. Not because the Buddha said so. Not because the Christ said so. Not because the scriptures said so. You experience, yourself, the truth, and you find that, yes, it is good for me, good for others. Then you accept it. Now with regard to sex, we have seen, and it is a very sorry state, that some people who are teaching spirituality, not all, but many of them, have had sexual relations with their own students. The whole teaching of Vipassana goes completely against that, because when a teacher gives the technique, gives Dhamma to anyone, then this person becomes like a son or a daughter of the teacher. A teacher must have that much love, and that type of love and compassion, like the love of a father or a mother. How can one think of such madness as having sexual relations with one's students? Such a person is not fit to teach Dhamma. His mind is so full of passion, lust, impurity. How can he or she teach this, a technique for ridding the mind of impurities? Such a person is not allowed to become a full teacher. One is given the responsibility to teach only when one has developed to a stage where the mind is reasonably pure, and where one cannot have even a thought of sexual relations with a student. All assistant teachers are trained to develop these qualities, and if anyone is found to have committed this kind of misconduct, he or she will immediately be deauthorized from assistant teaching. Question: you were speaking earlier of the laws of nature, and right now, many people are observing that nature itself is in trouble. Some are concerned that much of nature is, in fact, dying, and many parts of our natural world are experiencing great suffering. Many people feel a great urgency about responding to that suffering, and sometimes they feel anger towards those people who are causing it. What do you recommend? How might they respond to the suffering that they see, both in nature and in human society, with equanimity? Goyanka Ji, there are two aspects to this problem. One aspect is polluting the whole natural atmosphere, for example by different kinds of chemicals which harm the vegetation, the life of animals, birds and so on. Of course, any sensible, wise person must stop such pollution. If nature gets polluted, nature's harm is secondary. We are getting harmed. If the whole atmosphere becomes poisonous, how can people, who have mainly made it poisonous, live a healthy life? They have to live in this atmosphere, and they are spoiling it. So it's not that they should be kind to nature, I would say, better be kind to themselves. We don't understand what we are doing. Nature may be polluted now, and later on again may become fresh again, after, say, some hundreds of years. Meanwhile, what have we done to ourselves? So people should think about themselves. I want everyone to be selfish, but selfish in a proper sense. Right now, people don't know where their real self-interest lies, and they harm themselves. People need to be compassionate toward themselves. Chemical poisoning is one kind of pollution that is harming people. But another, bigger pollution, happens whenever our minds generate a defilement. That defilement is nothing but a vibration, an unhealthy vibration. At first it defiles the atmosphere within ourselves, and then it starts permeating the atmosphere around us. If I become angry, I am the first victim of my anger. I am the first person who is harmed by it. The second victim will be affected a little later, but first, I'll be harmed. Then, after I am harmed by this anger, the vibration that goes out from me pollutes the whole atmosphere around me. If there are more and more angry people, how can you expect people to live peacefully in that atmosphere? It's impossible. In a family, if there is one angry person, all the family members will become very unhappy. And if all of them are angry, it is a hell. What sort of life is that? But this is what is happening. People forget that when they generate negativity, they are not only harming others, they are harming themselves. But if they learn Vipassana, this technique which nature has given us, they can come out of this pollution. See how peacefully they live now, how harmoniously. They are giving peace and harmony to the atmosphere. Anybody who comes in contact with that atmosphere will start feeling peace and harmony. So that pollution is, to me, is more dangerous. For ages we have been doing this. Saintly people who experience the truth come and say, oh, no, don't do this. But still we do. Because we do not understand that we are harming ourselves. It is the same for the external pollution. People should understand that they are harming ourselves. A factory owner who is polluting the atmosphere with chemical gases is not only harming others, he is harming himself also, living in that atmosphere. He can't have a separate atmosphere for himself. But one who is polluting the atmosphere at the mental level is suffering much more. The moment he starts generating anger, he is its first victim, and becomes a very miserable person. So the atmosphere outside us is bad, as you say, and something has to be done. But when you said that people become angry when they see the pollution, that is not helpful. They have started producing another pollution with their anger. Anger cannot solve the problem. You must have compassion for other people. They are ignorant, they don't know what they are doing. We have to be firm and very stern, and very strong in opposing them, but deep inside there must be only love and compassion, no hatred. Hatred and anger cannot solve any problem. Question: it strikes me that what you are saying is something that all political leaders should hear. Goyanka: well, it starts from there. Every good or bad thing starts from the top and percolates through the society. If these people remain bad, the whole society has to suffer, and can't get the truth. But if the leaders start realizing that they are more or less owning the destiny of the whole human society, then they should live a better life, a good life which can give a good example to the people, an example not just of power, but purity. Purity is the greatest power. If they learn how to keep their minds pure, they won't pollute the atmosphere around. And if they start doing that, it will certainly be so helpful to the whole human nation. Question: you said Vipassana requires a 10-day residential course. But is it possible to learn Vipassana on one's own? Suppose one lives where there is no access to a Vipassana teacher. Goyanka: I would very much like it if people could just listen to a few words about the technique, which is so simple. In about 10 minutes I can explain what the technique is, and people can understand. They can tell you what they understand. But we have tried this and it doesn't work. Because from birth, when we first opened our eyes and started looking outside, we have been giving all importance to things outside. Our whole life we have been extroverted. Now all of a sudden we want to change that habit and experience things inside. Just saying that doesn't work. We have to practice. One wishing to practice must be under a proper guide, who has himself practiced properly, and who can guide properly. And must be in an environment where there is least disturbance. You can't learn it in the normal, marketplace, environment with all the disturbances. Once you have learned, then, yes, you go to live in the world outside, with all its distractions, and yet you can practice. But for learning the first time, the proper environment is essential. I know it is so difficult for somebody to find 10 days of life free, to leave all one's other responsibilities and come to learn this technique. But it is essential. Question: what would you say to the businessman or the doctor who says, I can't give 10 days of my life? Goyanka: the same thing happened to me. I was such a busy businessman, an industrialist. For me to give 10 days was unthinkable. I was a very angry person, a very egoistic person, living an ego-centered life, hating others and feeling that I am the wisest and most intelligent person, because at this young age I have so much money. All the others are useless, that's why they can't earn money, they can't be successful in life. That ego was so strong. Intellectually, I started realizing that this was so, and that it was my own ego, my own impurity which was making me miserable. How to come out of it? I tried different ways. I practiced devotional songs and chanting for years, but this didn't work. I tried at the intellectual level to understand all the scriptures, how all the negativities are so harmful and the positive feelings of the mind are so good. I kept on thinking. As with the chanting and devotional practices, this worked for some time only, but again I felt the same misery. Then I contacted a wise person, Sayagyi Yu Ba-kin, who became my teacher. He said, all these are games of the conscious level of the mind, the surface level, whereas your habit pattern lies at the root level. The root level is what we call the unconscious mind. It is very blind. It will not listen to any advice from the intellect. It will not listen to any advice. It will just keep on reacting. Whenever it feels something pleasant, it will react with craving, clinging. When it feels something unpleasant, it will react with aversion, hatred. That has become the habit pattern of this deepest level of the mind. And unless we change this deepest level, all other things that we are doing at the surface are only temporary. They cannot help. If the root is unhealthy, the whole tree is unhealthy. So you must go to that root. If you don't make the whole journey from the surface level of your mind to the depth of your mind, how can you change your mind at the depth level? That requires something like a surgical operation of the mind, and that requires proper guidance, a proper environment, and some time. You don't just sit down, meditate, and immediately penetrate to the depth. It's not possible. You have to go layer by layer, and reach the place where the deep unconscious mind is blindly reacting, all the time reacting, anger, hatred, craving, clinging. These are the habit patterns. You have to reach that stage, and it takes time. So I understood. If I am sick, I have to go to a hospital. I can't help it. And that may take 10 days, it may take 10 months. I have to take these 10 days and see what happens. And now, I find everybody is a sick person. Each one requires this particular treatment. Less or more, everyone requires it. So 10 days, initially, will look like too much time to spare. But once people pass through a course, they start saying, these are the 10 best days of my life, up till now, and, I feel, for the future also. They gave me a totally new life. So people don't waste their 10 days. Once they pass through it, they feel it is wonderful. Question: many people come to something like Vipassana because they feel they are suffering in some way. But what about the person who doesn't feel he or she is suffering, who feels quite happy and satisfied? What motivation would they have to do this work? Goyanka G. Generally speaking, we can say that Vipassana helps everyone. One may be at any level in life, but one cannot say, there is no room for any improvement in me. One may be a very peaceful person, one may be a very intelligent person, very wise, very successful. There may be no obvious miseries in one's life. And yet, if one starts Vipassana, one starts improving, one becomes a much better person than before. Experience has shown this. But frequently, when somebody says there's no misery in me, this is only a delusion. This person does not know how much agitation there is inside. One remains deluded in this sensual pleasure, that sensual pleasure, this satisfaction, that satisfaction. This is only at the surface level. Deep inside, there is so much dissatisfaction, so much discontent. So one must first realize that I am a sick person, and then must realize this is the cause of my sickness. And then one must try to remove that cause to come out of the sickness. So one must have at least this motivation to become a better person than what I am. Very successful business people have become better business people, very successful writers have become better writers, artists have become better artists. In every sphere, in whatever profession one is involved, we find this general improvement in the mundane field occurs after one has practiced Vipassana. Leave the supra-mundane aside for the moment, it doesn't matter. But in the mundane, worldly field, as you progress in Vipassana, you will get better results. Question: let's turn back to the supra-mundane. What does the science of Vipassana teach about the supernatural or the paranormal? Goyanka G. There are many experiences one might have which will be what are called supernatural, but we don't give importance to them. They are also natural, they are not unnatural. Nothing is extraordinary. But if one aims for some kind of supernatural experience, then the whole purpose of Vipassana is lost. The purpose of Vipassana is to purify the mind, to live a good life. You may experience some supernatural powers, and yet if your mind remains full of anger, hatred, ill will, animosity, then what's the use of this supernatural power? It will increase your ego all the more. Look, I am now such a big yogi because I can do this thing the others cannot do. This is madness, it doesn't help. So we don't give importance to these experiences. Such experiences do come. On the path the mind gets purer and purer, and a pure mind becomes very powerful. But it is powerful in a positive way. An impure mind, by certain mental exercises, can also become powerful, but that is an impure mind. It will harm itself, it will harm others. So purity of the mind is the aim of Vipassana, power is secondary, a byproduct. Question: I heard a famous person speak recently, someone who was obviously very insightful, very wise, very intelligent, very brilliant, but also, to my perception, very egoistic, in a way that seemed potentially dangerous to that person and to others. How do you recommend responding to a person like that? Goyanka G. You see, if you simply say to that person, look, you are a very wise person, but to me it seems that you are also an egoistic person, that won't help. This person will become more egoistic. What do you know? You are a mad fellow. You don't know that I am free from ego. That's what this person will say. The best thing is to try to purify oneself first. With a pure mind, whatever you say will be very effective. When the words come from a pious-minded person, even this full of ego person will start thinking, yes, perhaps this is correct. Now let me examine this. There must be something wrong in me. But when you say, with any kind of anger or hatred, oh, this fellow talks as if he is a very wise person, but he's really a mad fellow, when even the volition carries some hatred, the words will carry no meaning. No purpose will be served because the vibration of anger or hatred will go with them. When you have hatred, that vibration of hatred will go and touch this person and he will become agitated, he won't like it. But if a vibration of love goes with the same words, you will find a big change happening. Everyone who wants to help others to come out of misery, or come out of their defects, must first come out of that particular defect oneself. A lame person cannot support another lame person. A blind person cannot show the path to another blind person. Vipassana helps you first become a healthy person yourself, and then automatically you will start helping others to become healthy. Question: is Vipassana the only way to that purity? Goyanka: well, what do you mean by the only way? We have no attachment to the word Vipassana. What we say is, the only way to become a healthy person is to change the habit pattern of one's mind at the root level. And the root level of the mind is such that it remains constantly in contact with body sensations day and night. What we call the unconscious mind is day and night feeling sensations in the body and reacting to these sensations. If it feels pleasant sensation, it will start craving, clinging. If it feels unpleasant sensation, it will start hating, it will have aversion. That has become our mental habit pattern. People say that we can change our mind by this technique or that technique. And, to a certain extent, these techniques do work. But if these techniques ignore the sensations on the body, that means they are not going to the depth of the mind. So you don't have to call it Vipassana, we have no attachment to this name. But people who work with the bodily sensations, training the mind not to react to the sensations, are working at the root level. This is the science, the law of nature I have been speaking about. Mind and matter are completely interrelated at the depth level, and they keep reacting to each other. When anger is generated, something starts happening at the physical level. A biochemical reaction starts. When you generate anger, there is a secretion of a particular type of biochemistry, which starts flowing with the stream of blood. And because of that particular biochemistry which has started flowing, there is a very unpleasant sensation. That chemistry started because of anger. So naturally it is very unpleasant. And when this very unpleasant sensation is there, our deep unconscious mind starts reacting with more anger. The more anger, the more this particular flow of biochemical. More biochemical flow, more anger. A vicious circle has started. Vipassana helps us to interrupt that vicious cycle. A biochemical reaction starts, Vipassana teaches us to observe it. Without reacting, we just observe. This is pure science. If people don't want to call it Vipassana, they can call it by any other name, we don't mind. But we must work at the depth of the mind. Question: I read that you've said that Buddhism has lost what the Buddha taught, which is the Dhamma, the Vipassana technique. What is your opinion of the Christian tradition? Was Jesus teaching something similar? Goyanka: every saintly person becomes a saintly person because he or she has done something to purify the mind. There is no magic, no miracle. Such things were imposed later on. A person is a good person because one has purified the mind. And to purify the mind, one must go to the depth of the mind and take out the impurities. This is what Jesus kept teaching to people. Now, in every tradition, whether Christian or Jewish or Hindu or Jain or Muslim, what we call the founders of these religions were saintly people. They were not interested in fighting others in the name of religion, that started only much later. They taught a way to purify the mind, and that was lost everywhere. Nobody is practicing this. One may call oneself a Buddhist, but one is not practicing the technique taught by Buddha. It is the same with Hindus, the same with Christians, the same everywhere. Why do I say this? Because people come to the Vipassana technique from all communities, from all religions. A large number of Christian nuns and priests have come, hundreds of them, and they keep coming. And when they pass through this, they say, now we understand what Jesus Christ taught. They learn Vipassana, and they say, now through this practice, we understand. We did not properly understand the words of Christ. You see, Jesus was a practitioner. He was talking about his experience. And unless we have that experience, we can't understand him. The same thing is said by Muslims when they pass through Vipassana, the same thing by Hindus, the same thing by Buddhists. Truth is truth. If one remains at the intellectual level, as I said at the beginning, or devotional level, then the truth differs from person to person. But at the level of experience, the truth is always the same, it makes no difference who practices it. Question: we are, of course, working at the intellectual level here, which is inevitable for the moment. But could you explain more about the body being vibrational? And is one always responsible for the agitation in one's own body, or is one susceptible to the vibrations coming from someone else? Goyanka: whatever vibration comes from outside, it will certainly try to affect you. But if you are your own master inside, then your vibration will be so strong that you will start helping and purifying the vibration outside. If I am a weak person, anything will try to overpower me. If agitation is coming, and I am a weak person, I'll succumb to that. If I am a strong person, I don't mind any kind of thing coming my way. I generate my vibration, which is a vibration of love, compassion, goodwill, stability, equanimity, and I'm not harmed. So that's why we say in Vipassana that 100% of the cause of our misery is within ourselves, not outside. 100% of the cause of our happiness is within ourselves, not outside. We are our own masters. Develop that mastery of yourself and you will become a happy person. Question: some people would feel that they might be giving up some of the joy in life to also be giving up the participation in that agitation. Goyanka: no. Life will be so joyful. Say you have enjoyed a particular type of life, having this sensual pleasure, that sensual pleasure. You say this is very joyful. But once you experience the joy of a balanced and peaceful mind, and you compare the two, you will find there is no comparison. The difference is like the difference between light and darkness, it is so great. One feels so happy, look, I have come out of it. One does not become like a vegetable, with no emotion in one's life. No, one's life is full of joy, full of life. Life becomes so bright and so good, so life full. It is not lifeless. But to the person who has not experienced this, it looks like illusion. Oh, such peace of mind is not possible. Enjoying things at the sensual level is more important. It's not that after learning Vipassana we will run away from the sensual pleasures, but there will be no attachment to them. If we miss it, we miss it, still we are happy. If we get it, still we are content. Ordinarily, when you miss it, you will feel so depressed. With this technique, that depression will go away, so that you really are happy. Question: well, it may be an illusion, but I am certainly enjoying this interview. Goyanka: find 10 days to learn this technique and you will enjoy the real joy. Question: let me ask you about suffering. What about children who are in great physical pain? They have no control over their suffering. Goyanka: parents are responsible for the joy, happiness, or misery of the child, at the initial stage. They need to give them a good atmosphere. If the parents are agitated all the time, quarreling, feeling anger, hatred, this, that, then the whole atmosphere of the family is such that the child cannot experience what real happiness is. At present, there are so many different kinds of exploitation going on, so people are hesitant about every kind of meditation, whatever it is. But in a few years' time, when more and more people start experiencing it, then this will become a part of the life of the society. Now we have our schools, colleges, gymnasiums, hospitals, these are necessary for the society. In the same way, Vipassana centers will become necessary for the society. The children will go to these centers, not necessarily for 10 days. They will just start by observing their respiration for a few minutes. It will become a part of their teaching in the school. In India, there is a school period which is called PT, physical training. I say, why not also have MT, a few minutes of mental training? 10 minutes is enough, and the whole day works much better. Some of the schools have started this and are getting very good results. This will become very popular, it is bound to happen. Some people take it as a religion, a cult, or a dogma, so naturally there is resentment and opposition. But Vipassana should only be taken as pure science, the science of mind and matter, and a pure exercise for the mind to keep it healthy. What could be the objection? And it is so result-oriented, because it starts giving results here and now. People will start accepting this. There are always initial difficulties. When a Vipassana center is started, the neighbors might say, oh, who are these people, what are they going to do here? But after 1, 2, 3 years, they find it is something so good, it helps them also. Some of them will come and participate, and the word will start spreading. It has happened this way at every center. The initial year, there is a little turmoil. The second and third year, the neighbors start cooperating. It's bound to spread. Question: since there are still not very many centers, and so many people in the world who can't get to one, it must be difficult to choose where to make this training available. Most of the new centers are being created in the West. Is the strategy to have it spread first in the places where people already do have enough to eat and can take care of themselves in that way? Goyanka: no. I don't say that only such people can come, because of my experience in India where there is so much of poverty. Any ordinary, intelligent person will understand that first the stomach must be filled. A person with an empty stomach, how can he meditate? But that person also needs vipassana as much as a very rich person. To me, they are equally miserable. Now, for the person who does not get even enough to fill the stomach one time during the day, this is so difficult. If that person comes to a course for those 10 days, at least, he is worried less about food. That person gets free food, free lodging, everything required, much better than he gets in his hut outside. And then he learns vipassana. Going back out, he is able to face his difficulties much better. Of course, he has difficulties. I say the rich person has got more difficulties, but people never understand that. In India, 25% or 30% of the people coming to the vipassana courses live below the poverty line. Even people who sometimes go all day without eating, they come. After the 10 days, their family members come sometimes and thank us. This person may have no money, but whatever money he does earn, even a small amount, he spends on alcohol or gambling, because he thinks this is the only way to come out of misery. If I have some alcohol, I will forget the misery. By gambling, I might earn more. So these two addictions are there even with the poorest people in India. After just 1 or 2 courses, they are freed from these unwholesome habits. Automatically. Nobody tells them, going back home, you should not take alcohol. Nobody tells them, going back home, don't gamble. All that addiction is addiction towards body sensations. And once they have learned to observe body sensations, they come out of these addictions. Vipassana has easily freed people from their addiction to drugs or alcohol, because all addiction is to body sensation. It looks as if one is addicted to alcohol, but no, one is addicted to the sensation that is created by taking alcohol, and one wants that sensation again and again. One has to take something to generate that sensation. Now through vipassana, one learns that when the sensation comes, one simply observes. I am not reacting, so my attachment to it goes away. So those people who are so poor, they start getting benefited even at the material level. Whatever they earn they now use for their family, for themselves. They have started living a better life. Previously they were not earning because of their agitated mind, because of the alcohol, because of the gambling. Now their mind is steadier, and they start earning much more. Whatever work they do, they get better results. So their earning increases, and their expenditure goes down. Materially, they are becoming better. These results are happening everywhere. If a rich person who is very self-centered practices vipassana, the self-centered nature goes away. That person realizes, all this money that I am earning or that I have, why is it for me alone? It has come from the society. Of course it should be used for my maintenance or the maintenance of those who depend on me. Certainly I am a householder, I am not a monk or a nun. But it should also be used for the society, for the good of others. This person was just exploiting the society by grabbing money, legally or illegally, while other people were suffering. Now this person becomes so generous for the good of others, and comes out of suffering in that way. Because this person was himself suffering. When he comes out of it, his accumulation is used for the good of others. That is also natural law. There is no magic to changing the society, no miracle required. Things have gone so bad, let them come out in a proper way. They will, because vipassana has started creating results. Question, is it possible to fail at vipassana? Goyanka ji, yes, if you don't work as your guide asks you to work. For 10 days you are to leave behind everything else that you are practicing. You come for 10 days to learn a very particular technique, a unique technique, which has its own special features. It takes you to the depth of the mind. You start from the surface, and go to the depth, a surgical operation. In the past, you might have been doing some other kind of meditation, where verbalization was involved, or visualization, or some kind of devotional practice, or some intellectual game, or some imagination. If you want to do any or all of these things while doing vipassana, there will be a conflict inside. The whole vipassana technique wants you to go to the depth of the mind and observe the natural vibrations that are happening there from moment to moment. If you are creating certain vibrations by your intellectual thoughts, or by your emotion, or by some verbalization at the surface level of the mind, and you want to go to the depth, there is a conflict. So without condemning what you were doing in the past, the teacher will say, leave that aside, and give this technique a trial for 10 days. After 10 days, you are your own master. If you don't like it, throw it away. If you like it, accept it. But don't mix those two during these 10 days. Very rarely, if somebody mixes things in that way, then there is difficulty. But otherwise, there is no possibility of getting into difficulty. And there's no possibility of failure. When you say failure, it means not getting anything. There is not a single case where somebody has said, I didn't get anything. One may get less or one may get more, according to what effort one has given to the technique. But a definite result is assured, there is no question. Question: do all sensations have a purpose, or are some experiences meaningless? In practicing Vipassana, do you find that everything that happens to us has a purpose, a meaning? Goyanka, there is a purpose, but if you don't know what the purpose is, every sensation that arises is giving you this lesson: look, I am impermanent. I am coming to pass away. Don't get agitated because of it. Don't get overwhelmed because of it. You learn. Make this sensation into a tool to change your habit pattern. In that way, all experiences are very purposeful. If we don't know what the purpose is, then we get overwhelmed, and we keep on reacting. We make ourselves worse. This is our ignorance. The purpose of the vibration is good, to give us a warning. I am angry, and the vibration has started because of that anger. That is a warning to me: look, don't be angry, otherwise you experience this, and this will multiply. Now, if I don't take any interest in that warning, I will harm myself. But a very good purpose is there, so you start observing it. Well, look, a sensation has come because of my anger, now let me see how long it lasts. I have made it a tool to come out of my anger. Question: is there anything you want to emphasize about Vipassana? Goyanka, Vipassana is nothing but an art of living. It should not be mixed with any religion, any dogma, any philosophy, any belief. All should be left aside. Vipassana is a code of conduct, a pure way for living a good life, a healthy life. It is good for oneself, and good for others. If Vipassana is taken that way, and that's the proper way to understand Vipassana, it will be very helpful. But if it is seen with a colored lens, look, another religion has come, this is Buddhism, or this or that, then one loses. Vipassana does not lose anything. Those who are practicing Vipassana don't lose anything, but those who have such colored lenses will lose. Vipassana should be taken as a science, a pure science of mind and matter, which starts at a very apparent, gross level, but takes us to much deeper and subtler levels, even to a level which is pure mind and matter. That is the important thing, and it is a message for everybody. That's why it is not limited to any particular community, any particular religion, or any particular country. It is for all. Question: I've enjoyed reading the teaching stories in your books. Would you close this interview with a story? Goyanka, there is a story about a saint sitting at the bank of the river. He sees a scorpion floating by, and he knows the scorpion will drown in the water. He wants to save the scorpion, but he finds there is nothing to use to take it out. So because he is a saint, he puts his hand in the water, and takes it out. He has love and compassion for the scorpion. But as he lifts it out, the scorpion stings him and injects him with poison, and again falls into the water. Again he helps the scorpion. Somebody who is watching says, "What are you doing? You know that the scorpion will sting you, and yet you keep on doing that." This stinging is the habit pattern of the scorpion, and my habit pattern is to serve. Why should I change my habit pattern? The job of the Vipassana meditator is to serve, to help, whatever the repercussions may be. And the repercussions will, ultimately, always be good. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. After the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, in the US, Goyanka wrote the following message for publication in the Vipassana newsletter. The recent tragedy in New York and Washington has shaken us all. We grieve for all the victims of this tragedy. And we grieve for all those innocent people who now live in the shadow of fear in the aftermath of this tragedy. When there is darkness, light is needed. This horrifying act has brought to our attention the dark side of the modern age. It has also put to the test our courage to face this tragic situation. I am sure that each Vipassana meditator must have generated love and compassion for all the victims of this tragedy. We wish that the perpetrators come to their senses and not repeat such crimes. We condemn the crime but have only compassion for the perpetrators. We understand the universal law of nature, as taught by Buddha: hatred does not cease by hatred, by love alone it ceases. This is an eternal law. This law has nothing to do with Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Judaism, Sikhism, or any other ism. All peace-loving people understand this. And who doesn't want peace? When millions around the world greet each other with Salam Walaikum, may peace be with you, they do so with the same love for peace. My teacher, Sayagyi U Bakin, used to say purity of mind is the greatest common denominator of all religions. No one with a pure mind can indulge in such dastardly acts. It will be another great tragedy if this incident creates sweeping aversion against a particular community. Criminals are always very few compared to the common people of a 34. Particular society. Dhamma does not preach to blame those who are innocent. Division of human society into the compartments of religion is against Dhamma. Dhamma never divides, it unites. This is the time for us to express solidarity with innumerable peace-loving Muslims and Arabs. The Buddha used to say that all good and bad qualities are found in all the classes of society. Let us remember that. Let not the cowardly act of a few affect our perception of an entire faith. Let us be peaceful in this hour of crisis. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. We know that all such acts are the product of hatred and ignorance. Therefore let us work towards removing these from everyone's minds. Let us all meditate together and practice loving kindness for all the victims of the recent tragedy in New York and Washington and for all the people of the world. The Universal Message of Peace. Address by S.N. Goyanka. To the Millennium World Peace Summit, UN General Assembly Hall, United Nations, New York, the 29th of August 2000. In late August of 2000, Goyanka participated in the Millennium World Peace Summit, a gathering of 1,000 of the world's religious and spiritual leaders. This address was delivered to the participants at a session in the General Assembly chambers at the United Nations, under the auspices of Secretary General Kofi Annan. The purpose of the meeting was to promote tolerance, foster peace, and encourage interreligious dialogue. With the many different viewpoints represented, the potential for disagreement was strong. In his presentation to the delegates, Goyanka tried to highlight what they, and all spiritual paths, have in common, the universal Dhamma. His remarks were received with repeated ovations. Friends, leaders of the spiritual and religious world, this is a wonderful occasion, when we can all unite and serve humanity. Religion is religion only when it unites. When it divides us, it is nothing. Much has been said here about conversion, both for and against. Far from being opposed to conversion, I am in favor of it, but not conversion from one organized religion to another. No, the conversion must be from misery to happiness. It must be from bondage to liberation. It must be from cruelty to compassion. That is the conversion needed today, and that is what this meeting should seek to bring about. The ancient land of India gave a message of peace and harmony to the world, to all humanity, but it did more, it gave a method, a technique for achieving peace and harmony. To me it seems that if we want peace in human 36. Society, we cannot ignore individuals. If there is no peace in the mind of the individual, I do not understand how there can be real peace in the world. If I have an agitated mind, always full of anger, hatred, ill will and animosity, how can I give peace to the world? I cannot, because I have no peace myself. Enlightened persons have therefore said, first find peace within yourself. One has to examine whether there is really peace within oneself. All the sages, saints, and seers of the world have advised, know thyself. That means not merely knowing at the intellectual level, or accepting at the emotional or devotional level, but realizing by experience at the actual level. When you experience the truth about yourself, within yourself, at the experiential level, the problems of life find their solution. You start understanding the universal law, the law of nature, or, if you prefer, the law of God Almighty. This law is applicable to one and all. When I generate anger, hatred, ill will, or animosity, I am the first victim of my anger. I am the first victim of the hatred or animosity that I have generated within. First I harm myself, and only afterwards do I start harming others. This is the law of nature. If I observe within myself, I find that as soon as any negativity arises in the mind, there is a physical reaction, my body becomes hot and starts burning, there are palpitations and tension, I am miserable. And when I generate negativity in me and become miserable, I do not keep the misery limited to myself, instead I throw it onto others. I make the entire atmosphere around me so tense that anyone who comes into contact with me also becomes miserable. Although I talk of peace and happiness, more important than words is what is happening within me. And if my mind is free of negativity, again the law starts working. The moment there is no negativity in the mind, nature, or God Almighty, starts rewarding me, I feel peaceful. This too I can observe within myself. Whatever one's religion, or tradition, or country, when one breaks the law of nature and generates negativity in the mind, one is bound to suffer. Nature itself provides the punishment. Those who break nature's laws start feeling the misery of hellfire within, here and now. The seed they sow now is a seed of hellfire, and what awaits them after death is nothing but hellfire. Similarly, by the law of nature, if I keep my mind pure, full of love and compassion, I enjoy the kingdom of heaven within, here and now. And the seed that I sow will have as its fruit the kingdom of heaven after death. It makes no difference whether I call myself a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jain. A human being is a human being. The human mind is the human mind. The conversion that is needed is from impurity of mind to purity of mind. And this conversion changes people in wonderful ways. It is no magic or miracle. This is a pure science of observing the interaction of mind and matter within. One examines how the mind keeps influencing the material body, and how the body influences the mind. Through patient observation, the law of nature becomes so clear. Whenever one generates mental negativity, one starts suffering, and whenever one is free from negativity, one enjoys peace and harmony. This technique of self-observation can be practiced by one and all. Taught in ancient times by the enlightened one in India, the technique spread around the world. And still today, people from different communities, traditions, and religions come and learn this technique to obtain the same benefit. They may continue to call themselves Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, or Christian. These labels make no difference. A human being is a human being. The difference is that through their practice they become truly spiritual people, full of love and compassion. What they are doing is good for themselves and for all others. When someone generates peace in the mind, the entire atmosphere around that person is permeated with the vibration of peace, and anyone who encounters that person also starts enjoying peace. This mental change is the real conversion that is required. No other conversion has meaning. Permit me to read you a benevolent message from India to the world. Inscribed in stone 2,300 years ago, these are the words of the Emperor Ashoka the Great, an ideal ruler, explaining how to govern. He tells us one should not honor only one's own religion and condemn other faiths. This is an important message for our time. By condemning others and insisting that one's own tradition is the best, one creates difficulties for humanity. Ashoka continues, instead one should honor other religions for various reasons. Every religion worthy of the name has a wholesome essence of love, compassion, and goodwill, every religion. We should give honor to the religion because of this essence. The outer form always differs. There will be so many variations in rites, rituals, ceremonies, or beliefs. Let us not quarrel about all that, but instead give importance to the inner essence. As Ashoka says, by so doing one helps one's own religion to grow, and also renders service to the religions of others. In acting otherwise, one digs the grave of one's own religion, and harms other religions as well. This is a serious warning for us all. The message says, someone who honors his own religion and condemns other religions, may do so out of devotion to his religion, thinking, I will glorify my religion, but his actions injure his own religion more gravely. Finally, Ashoka presents the message of the universal law, the message of Dharma. Let all listen. Concord is good, not quarreling. Let all be willing to listen to the doctrine professed by others. Instead of disagreeing and condemning, let us give importance to the essence of the teaching of every religion. And then there will be real peace, real harmony. The meaning of happiness. The following is adapted from Genkaji's address, Is This All There Is? The meaning of happiness, at the World Economic Forum, Davos, Switzerland, January 2000. Every person who is attending this forum is among a unique group of people on our planet. They are generally among the wealthiest, most powerful, most accomplished individuals in the world. Even being invited to attend the World Economic Forum is recognition of the eminent status that each participant has reached among his or her peers. When someone has all the wealth, power, and status that anyone could ever want, are they necessarily happy? Are all these accomplishments and the self-satisfaction they bring, all their ice? Or is there some greater degree of happiness which it is possible to achieve? Happiness is an ephemeral condition. It is rapidly fleeting, here one moment and gone the next. One day when all is going well with your business, your bank account, and your family, there is happiness. But what happens when something unwanted happens? when something entirely out of your control happens to disturb your happiness and harmony. Every person in the world, regardless of their power and position, will experience periods during which circumstances arise that are out of their control and not to their liking. It may be the discovery that you have a fatal disease, it may be the illness or death of a near and dear one, it may be a divorce or the discovery that a spouse is cheating on you. For people addicted to success in life, it may simply be a failure at something, a bad business decision, your company being 40. Acquired and the resultant loss of your job, losing a political election, someone else getting the promotion that you wanted, or your child running away from home or rebelling and rejecting all the values that you hold dear. Regardless of how much wealth, prestige and power you may have, such unwanted events and failures generally create great misery. Next comes the question, how to deal with these periods of unhappiness which spoil an otherwise ideal life. Such periods are bound to come in even the most charmed life. Do you behave in a balanced and equanimous manner, or do you react with aversion towards the misery that you are experiencing? Do you crave for the return of your happiness? Moreover, when you becomes addicted to happiness and to everything always going the way you want, the misery when things do not go your way becomes even greater. In fact, it becomes unbearable. It often makes us resort to alcohol to cope with these situations of disappointment and depression, and to take sleeping pills in order to obtain the rest we need to keep going. All the while we tell the outside world and ourselves that we are sublimely happy because of our wealth, power and position. I come from a business family and was an entrepreneur and businessman from a very early age. I built sugar mills, weaving mills and blanket factories, and established import-export firms with offices all over the world. In the process, I made a lot of money. However, I also vividly remember how I reacted to events in my business and my personal life during those years. Every night, if I had failed to be successful in a business transaction during the day, I would lie awake for hours and try to figure out what had gone wrong and what I should do the next time. Even if I had accomplished a great success that day, I would lie awake and relish my accomplishment. While I experienced success, this was neither happiness nor peace of mind. I found that peace was very closely related to happiness, and I frequently had neither, regardless of my money and status as a leader in the community. I remember a favorite poem related to this subject. It is easy enough to be pleasant when life flows like a sweet song, but the man worthwhile is the one who can smile when things go dead wrong. How each one of us copes with these periods of things going dead wrong is a major component of the meaning of happiness, regardless of our money, power and prestige. It is a basic human need that everyone wants to live a happy life. For this, one has to experience real happiness. The so-called happiness that one experiences by having money, power, and indulging in sensual pleasures is not real happiness. It is very fragile, unstable, and fleeting. For real happiness, for lasting stable happiness, one has to make a journey deep within oneself and get rid of all the unhappiness stored in the deeper levels of the mind. As long as there is misery at the depth of the mind, all attempts to feel happy at the surface level of the mind prove futile. This stock of unhappiness at the depth of the mind keeps on multiplying as long as one keeps generating negativities such as anger, hatred, ill will, and animosity. The law of nature is such that as soon as one generates negativity, unhappiness arises simultaneously. It is impossible to feel happy and peaceful when one is generating negativity in the mind. Peace and negativity cannot coexist, just as light and darkness cannot coexist. There is a systematic scientific exercise developed by a great super scientist of my ancient country by which one can explore the truth pertaining to the mind-body phenomenon at the experiential level. This technique is called vipassana, which means observing the reality objectively, as it is. The technique helps one to develop the faculty of feeling and understanding the interaction of mind and matter within one's own physical structure. The technique of vipassana involves the basic law of nature that whenever any defilement arises in the mind, simultaneously, two things start happening at the physical level. One is that the breath loses its normal rhythm. I start breathing hard whenever a negativity arises in the mind. This is a very gross and apparent reality that everyone can experience. At the same time, at a subtler level, a biochemical reaction starts within the body. I experience a physical sensation on the body. Every defilement generates some sensation or the other in some part of the body. This is a practical solution. An ordinary person cannot observe abstract defilements of the mind, abstract fear, anger or passion. But with proper training and practice, it is very easy to observe the respiration and the sensations, both of which are directly related to the mental defilements. The respiration and the sensations will help in two ways. First, as soon as a defilement starts in the mind, the breath loses its normal rhythm. It will start shouting, "Look, something has gone wrong." Similarly, the sensations tell me, "Something has gone wrong. I must accept this." Then, having been warned, I start observing the respiration, the sensations, and I find that the defilement soon passes away. This mental physical phenomenon is like a coin with two sides. On the one side are the thoughts or emotions that arise in the mind. On the other side are the respiration and sensations in the body. Every thought or emotion, conscious or unconscious, every mental defilement manifests in the breath and sensation of that moment. Thus, by observing the respiration or sensation, one is indirectly observing the mental defilement. Instead of running away from the problem, you are facing reality as it is. Then you find that the defilement loses its strength, it can no longer overpower you as it did in the past. If you persist, the defilement eventually disappears altogether and you remain peaceful and happy. In this way, the technique of self-observation shows us reality in its two aspects, outside and inside. Previously, one always looked outside with open eyes, missing the inner truth. Human beings have always looked outside for the cause of their unhappiness. They have always blamed and tried to change the reality outside. Being ignorant of the inner reality, they never understood that the cause of suffering lies within, in their own blind reactions. The more one practices this technique, the quicker one can come out of negativities. Gradually the mind becomes freed of defilements, it becomes pure. A pure mind is always full of love, detached love for all others, full of compassion for the failings and sufferings of others, full of joy at their success and happiness, full of equanimity in the face of any situation. When one reaches this stage, then the entire pattern of one's life starts changing. It is no longer possible for one to do anything vocally or physically that will disturb the peace and happiness of others. Instead, the balanced mind not only becomes peaceful, it helps others to become peaceful also. The atmosphere surrounding such a person will become permeated with peace, harmony and real happiness, which also starts affecting others. This direct experience of reality within oneself, this technique of self-observation, is called vipassana, and it is a simple direct way to leading a truly happy life. There are different components of living a happy life. Several of these are relevant to the group of people attending the forum. When you have all the money and possessions you could ever want, how can you really enjoy those blessings when millions of people in the world are unsure of their next meal? While there is absolutely nothing wrong with earning money to provide for yourself, your family and all those that depend upon you, you must also give back to society. You are obtaining your wealth from society, so you must give something back. The attitude must be, I am earning for myself, but I am also earning for others. Another aspect of happiness in business is to be sure that whatever you do to earn your money does not hurt or harm others. This is a big responsibility. Money earned at the expense of the peace and happiness of other fellow human beings will never bring happiness to you. Real happiness is not possessions or accomplishments or wealth or power. It is a state of inner being that comes from a pure and peaceful mind. Vipassana is a tool that helps everyone achieve that state. Religion. This is the second of 3 addresses given at the World Economic Forum, Davos, Switzerland, January 2000. Good that we are all here today to discuss various aspects of religion. Not this religion or that religion, but religion as such. There are 2 significant aspects of religion, one of which is the hard core of religion, the quintessence of religion, which is of utmost importance. This is to live a moral life full of love, compassion, goodwill, and tolerance. Every religion essentially preaches morality. This is the greatest common denominator of all religions. A moral life is a life where one abstains from all such actions, physical or vocal, which disturb the peace and harmony of other beings. A moral life is always free from negatives such as anger, hatred, ill will, and animosity. A moral life is the true religious life where one lives in peace and harmony within oneself and generates nothing but peace and harmony towards others. A true religious life is an art of living, a moral code of conduct, and a happy, harmonious, healthy, and wholesome life. A true religious life is always good for oneself, good for others, and good for the entire human society. A true religious person is a pious person, a person with moral life, a person with a well-controlled and disciplined mind. A person with a pure heart always bubbling with love and compassion. A true religious person is an invaluable jewel of the human society. Such a true religious person can be from any country, community, any color, any sex, rich or poor, educated or uneducated. Every human being is capable of becoming a true religious person. Living a life of morality with a well-controlled, disciplined mind and with a pure heart full of love and compassion is not the monopoly of any one religion. It is for all. It transcends all sectarian barriers. It is always non-sectarian. It is always universal. It is always generic. If people practice this quintessence of religion, there is no reason for any conflict or confrontation among the people of the world regardless of their religion. Everyone in the human society can enjoy real peace, real harmony and real happiness by observing this quintessence of religion. But then there is another aspect of religion. It is the outer shell of religion. It involves rites, rituals, ceremonies, etc., which are likely to turn into different cults. Each has its own different mythological and philosophical beliefs, each of which are likely to turn into dogmas, blind faith and blind beliefs. In contrast to the uniformity of the inner hard core of morality, this outer hard shell exhibits great diversity. Every organized sectarian religion has its own rites, rituals, ceremonies, cults, beliefs and dogma. The followers of each organized sectarian religion usually develop a tremendous amount of attachment to their own rites, rituals, faith and dogma as the only means of salvation. Such misguided persons may not have even a trace of morality, a trace of love, compassion and goodwill towards others, and yet remain under the impression that they are religious persons because they have performed such and such rite or ritual, or because they have full faith in a particular belief. They are actually deluding themselves and missing the nectar of the practice of the true essence of religion. And then there is the worst part of this outer shell. People with strong attachment to their own faith have the firm belief that the followers of all other organized sectarian religions are non-believers and therefore will never taste salvation. They are fully convinced that to convert others to their religion is a great meritorious deed, and hence they apply various coercive methods. Such blind faith of the followers of different organized religions is likely to turn into fanatic fundamentalism. It leads to controversies, contradictions, violent confrontations and even wars and bloodshed, resulting in a tremendous amount of misery in the society, wiping away its peace and harmony. And all this is done in the name of religion. What a great misfortune for this human world. When the outer shells of religion become so predominantly important, the inner core of morality gets lost. Sometimes people feel that there cannot be a religion without the hard outer shell, however undesirable it may be. But successful experiments were made in the past and are also being made even today, where 100% importance is given to the inner core of morality. Ignoring the outer shell is totally irrelevant. There exists a method to adopt this practice successfully called vipassana meditation. Anger. This is the final of 3 addresses given at the World Economic Forum, Davos, Switzerland, January 2000. What happens when someone is angry? The law of nature is such that one who generates anger is its first victim. One is bound to become miserable as one generates anger, even though most of the time people do not realize that they are harming themselves by generating anger. Even if someone realizes this, the truth is that one is unable to keep oneself away from anger, to keep oneself free from anger. Now let us see why one becomes angry. It is quite obvious that anger arises when something undesirable has happened, when someone has created an obstacle in the fulfillment of your desires, when someone has insulted you, or when someone has expressed derogatory remarks about you while backbiting. All such reasons make one flare up in anger and are the apparent reasons for one to become angry. Now, is it possible that someone can attain so much power that no one should say or do anything against him? This is certainly impossible. Even to the most powerful person in the world, undesirable things keep on happening and he or she is helpless to prevent it. Even if we can stop one person from insulting us or saying something against us, there is no guarantee that another person will not start doing the same thing. While we cannot change the whole world according to our wishes, we can certainly change ourselves to get rid of the misery that one suffers because of generating anger. For this, one has to seek a deeper reason for the anger within oneself rather than outside. Let us understand within ourselves the real reason for generating anger. For example, let us understand from the standpoint of Vipassana the real reason which causes us to experience anger within ourselves. If you learn the art of observing the reality within yourself, it will become so clear at the experiential level that the real reason for anger lies within and not outside. As soon as one comes across some undesirable thing outside, there is a sensation in the body. And because the object was undesirable, the sensation is very unpleasant. It is only after feeling this unpleasant sensation that one reacts with anger. If one learns how to observe bodily sensations equanimously without reacting to them, one starts coming out of the old habit of flaring up in anger and harming oneself. The practice of Vipassana helps one to develop the faculty of observing all the different kinds of sensations which one experiences on different parts of the body from time to time and remain equanimous by not reacting to them. The old habit had been that when you feel pleasant sensations you react with craving and clinging, and when you feel unpleasant ones you react with anger and hatred. Vipassana teaches you to observe every sensation, both pleasant and unpleasant, objectively and remain equanimous with the understanding that every sensation has the quality of arising and passing away. No sensation remains eternally. By practicing the observation of sensation equanimously again and again, one changes the habit pattern of instant blind reaction to these sensations. Thus, in daily life, whenever one comes in contact with something undesirable, one notices that an unpleasant sensation has arisen in the body and one starts observing it without flaring up in anger as before. Of course, it takes time to reach a stage where one is fully liberated from anger. But as one practices Vipassana more and more, one notices that the period of rolling in anger is becoming shorter and shorter. Even if one is not able to feel the sensation immediately as it arises, maybe after a few minutes one starts realizing that by the blind reaction of anger one is making the unpleasant sensations even more intense, thereby making oneself even more miserable. As soon as one realizes this fact, one starts coming out of anger. With the practice of Vipassana, this period of realization of misery pertaining to unpleasant sensation becomes shorter and shorter, and a time comes when one realizes instantly the truth of the harm that one is causing to oneself by generating anger. This is the only way to liberate oneself from this mad habit of reacting with anger. Of course, there is also a way that as soon as one realizes that one has generated anger, one may divert one's attention to some other object, and by this technique one may feel that one is coming out of anger. However, it is actually only the surface part of the mind that has come out of anger. Deep inside one keeps on boiling in anger because you have not eradicated the anger but merely suppressed it. Vipassana teaches you not to run away from the reality but rather to face the reality and start objectively observing the anger in the mind and the unpleasant sensation in the body. By observing the reality of the unpleasant sensations in the body, you are not diverting your attention somewhere else, nor are you suppressing your anger to the deeper level of the mind. As you keep on observing the sensations equanimously, you will notice that the anger that has arisen naturally becomes weaker and weaker and ultimately passes away. The fact is that there is a barrier between the smaller part of the mind, that is the surface of the mind, and the larger part of the mind, the so-called subconscious or half-conscious mind. This larger part of the mind at the deepest level is constantly in touch with the bodily sensations and has become a slave of the habit pattern of blind reaction to these sensations. Due to one reason or the other, there are different kinds of sensations throughout the body at every moment. If the sensation is pleasant, then the habit pattern is to react with clinging and craving, and if it is unpleasant, the habit pattern is to react with aversion and hatred. Because of the barrier between the small surface part of the mind and the rest of the mind, the surface part is totally unaware of the fact that this constant reaction is taking place at the deeper level. Vipassana helps to break this barrier, and the entire mental structure becomes very conscious. It feels the sensations from moment to moment and, with the understanding of the law of impermanence, remains equanimous. It is easy to train the surface level of the mind to remain equanimous at the level of intellectual understanding, but this message of intellectual understanding does not reach the deeper level of the mind because of this barrier. When the barrier is broken by Vipassana, the entire mind keeps on understanding the law of impermanence, and the habit pattern of blind reaction at the deeper level starts changing. This is the best way to liberate yourself from the misery of anger. The art of living. Everyone seeks peace and harmony, because these are what we lack in our lives. From time to time we all experience agitation, irritation, disharmony, suffering, and when we suffer from agitation, we do not keep this misery limited to ourselves. We keep distributing it to others as well. The agitation permeates the atmosphere around the miserable person. Everyone else who comes into contact with him becomes irritated, agitated. Certainly this is not the proper way to live. One ought to live at peace within oneself, and at peace with others. After all, a human being is a social being. One has to live in society, to live and deal with others. How to live peacefully. How to remain harmonious within ourselves, and to maintain peace and harmony around us, so that others also can live peacefully and harmoniously. When one is agitated, then, to come out of it, one has to know the basic reason for the agitation, the cause of the suffering. If one investigates the problem, it soon becomes clear that whenever one starts generating any negativity or defilement in the mind, one is bound to become agitated. And negativity in the